Extremely welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be kicking things off in a couple of moments. Let me know where you're joining from. I'm joining from a rural part in Ireland called Offaly. It's cold, it's a little bit sunny here, and the evenings are getting darker. I'm not a winter baby, I'm a summer baby, so I'm finding it hard to accept that. So let us know. We've got Washington. Welcome, Anne. Welcome, Flavia. The ever tropical Dublin. Cool.
I'm glad the sarcasm came across there.
Okay. Well, we're thrilled to have you join to today's webinar, which is, oh, how we backdrop there. It could be me. We're good. We're thrilled to have you join today's webinar from acquisition to expansion, customer education strategies to attract, activate, engage, and grow. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Leach. I'm a product marketing manager here at LearnUpon, and I'm super excited to be your host today. So to give a bit of context into this webinar, I'm sure some of you follow a lot of influence and fearless customer education leaders on LinkedIn, but customer education is heating up. It's not just about onboarding anymore. It's a strategic lever that drives adoption, retention, and expansion across the customer lifecycle. And at LearnUpon, we're seeing this every day. We're seeing high growth software companies wrestle with this all the time. How to design, how to scale customer education programs, but also how do they move the needle at every stage of the customer lifecycle. So before we dive in and I ruin all the fun about our webinar, I want to keep a few housekeeping notes. So this session is recorded and will be shared via email in the next couple of days. It's on demand on our website and our YouTube channel. So please share with your colleagues that did not get to attend today because it's going to be a jammed-packed session. Lastly, we'd love to hear your questions. This is your hour. We have an amazing panel today, super experienced stars here. So use the chat, use the Q&A, and we'll take 10 minutes at the end to try and tackle them. And if not, we'll follow up. So speaking of chat, let's warm things up. We were just speaking about Halloween before we started this webinar, and we thought we'd start with something fun. So you might have seen those corporate Halloween costume memes that come around the corner every so often on LinkedIn. So we decided to put our own spin on it this year in LearnUpon. But this is our Customer Academy strategist. She hasn't found LearnUpon yet, unfortunately. Maybe she will. For those in the chat, let us know. Wears multiple hats and maybe doesn't quite have a strategy in place yet, but might after this webinar. So let us know your Halloween costume. Let us know what you're dressing up for or what family and friends are. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Frances and let the panelists introduce themselves.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everyone. I'm Frances Kleven. I oversee our customer success and our implementations here at LearnUpon, but also our customer education. So for us at LearnUpon, that's our customer university that we run through LearnUpon, and that's also our customer community. And then we have our knowledge base that also sits with our support team. I love any webinar where education is in the title because my entire career has been in education in one form or the other. I started my career in higher education in California, working with universities on their digital learning strategies, and then moved to the dark side some years ago to Silicon Valley SaaS and worked for Coursera with their partnerships team when they were working with university partners on their digital learning strategies, and have now been at LearnUpon for 7 years. And working with our customers both on their employee learning strategies as well as their customer learning strategies. So delighted to be a part of this conversation and to geek out with everything customer education. Oh, and I am being a party pooper and not doing much for a Halloween costume, but thankfully I was in San Francisco actually for a customer education event a couple weeks ago, and I saw the Boulet Brothers show, and it was Halloween themed, so I have a t-shirt from that. So I'm putting that on and calling that a day with something sort of Halloween themed.
Amazing. Thanks, Frances. And next up is Lindsay.
I love that, Frances. I thought when you were saying party pooper, you were actually saying you are going to be a party
Oh, I
pooper,
could actually just wear
right?
I could have worn this shirt for my party pooper costume tomorrow.
Yeah, that could be your costume. I am definitely in the Halloween spirit. I brought my ghost mug, and I shared in the chat I'm going to be a butterfly catcher because I have a 1 and 3-year-old and they are going to be butterflies. So I'm sure I'm going to be chasing them around all day. But very excited to be here and excited to engage with you all, learn from all of you. Definitely use this chat pane. We love to make this feel very conversational. But my name's Lindsay Thibeault, and I am the co-founder of SaaS Academy Advisors. We help SaaS businesses build and scale and grow their academies beyond even just customer education. And prior to building SaaS Academy Advisors, I was part of the founding HubSpot Academy team. I always like to share a little bit of my story there because I was actually a HubSpot customer myself back when HubSpot Academy didn't even exist. So before there was even a formal training program, I had all of these really powerful learning moments from HubSpot blog posts that I stumbled across or insights from my onboarding specialists. But once I got through onboarding, that learning journey really stopped. And that's what really motivated me to join the founding HubSpot Academy team. And from there, I really wanted to take those learning moments that I learned, that those learning moments that we were teaching with HubSpot Academy that were intentional and accessible and continuous. And after 9 years at HubSpot, I've now spent the last 5 years working with SaaS businesses around the world to really do the same, build scalable education programs that drive not just product adoption, but that real life professional growth for their users. That's what we're really big on, is because when education is really done right, it doesn't just teach people how to use your product, it transforms how they work. One other thing that I love about the panel here is that we all have mixed backgrounds, but we are all going to tell you like it is. We're going to give real strategies. We want to make this actionable. We're not giving you any pie in the sky ideas. So I'm really excited to share my learnings, but also learn from each other.
Amazing. Thanks, Lindsay. Great Halloween costume as well. And the mug. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Chris.
Hello, my name is Chris LoDolce, and 2 days I will be a fisherman catching exotic sea creatures. My children are going to be an axolotl, and a octopus. My wife's going to be a Nemo fish or a clownfish. So I'm really excited for that. But before we get there, a little bit about myself, very similar to Lindsay. So I think what I'll share is the thing that kept me in customer education for as long as it has. So we started HubSpot Academy in 2012, through leaving HubSpot and starting SaaS Academy Advisors, is the impact on the individuals going through courses. So at HubSpot, we'd hear things all the time like, I've completed the email marketing certification. I'm crushing my goals. I got a promotion. Or I just had a new child in my family. I'm coming back to the workforce. I took the course. I was able to apply for a job, speak intelligently about marketing, which has changed, in the few years I was out. And now I have my dream job. And those stories go on and on to, I was able to afford for my children to go to Europe to see their grandparents for the first time, right? Those are the things that like give me the chills, but remind me that when you're creating educational content that's not just point and click, here's how to use a tool, but you're really thinking about it holistically, on how the platform and product has been built with a unique point of view and how that can translate into success for the business and for the user. It becomes a lot more powerful of a job and a purpose and a mission. And so that's what Lindsay and I have been focusing on for the last 5 years together, is finding businesses who are looking to build programs not just to teach the point and click, but to really enable users to be successful with the platform, which then kind of transfers to success in their professional career and success in their own lives. So that's what really drives me every day. I'm excited to be here and share some strategies. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Laura.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Another great costume. So much thought and effort goes into these. I really need to up my game. But Eric, over to you. Excited?
Yeah, so hi y'all, my name is Eric Mistry, coming from Duluth, Minnesota. Yeah, my career, like I think the rest of us, has been a lot of kind of ping pong, going from area to area. Started my career in higher education, and then moved into SaaS as an instructional designer. And then that led me to a lot of customer education operations and then customer success operations. Um, Everything kind of related to customer education. I think, how does it relate to the larger business? So how do we take customer education and think about it really strategically? How do we get the data out of it? How do we actually show what we're doing in customer education produces real business outcomes? Um, Nowadays, I'm working for Zapier, helping get AI and automation transformation for everyone. And also still working on a little bit of customer education stuff as well. I write the customer education biweekly newsletter. It's on LinkedIn and Substack, trying to really capture from a lot of the noise, a lot of the amazing things that's going on, make it into a more digestible format every few weeks. Yeah, and beyond that, just fair warning, I make dad jokes, I make bad puns. And now I have kids to actually back it up. I made dad jokes before I was a dad, and it's just a thing. As far as costumes this year, like I put in the chat, we're doing Frozen this year. My kids are Elsa and Anna. My wife is Sven, and I got nominated to be Olaf because I like warm hugs, according to my 4-year-old. So, with that, we can kick it off into a webinar land.
I love it. I think this is my favorite introduction into a webinar, I have to say. Okay, we're going to run a quick poll, so bear with me. I want to hear, do you have a customer education strategy in place? So I've just launched the poll, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds to fill that out. We're now on 5 seconds, so you have 25 seconds left. No one's counting, but yes, let us know. I see some numbers sort of coming in there. Okay. Okay, some interesting answers. Amazing. Couple of seconds left. Okay, I'm going to finish the poll there. But thank you very much for filling it out. I want to hand over to Frances here, who's going to take us through the customer education lifecycle.
Yeah. So echoing Lindsay's point of let's keep it real, and we want to speak frankly. And so if you feel the urge to groan when you see another life cycle map, especially in customer facing teams, I absolutely get that. I think the idea of the customer life cycle, it just it feels stale. It feels like it sits in a silo. It doesn't go anywhere. So I'm fully aware of that and was probably resistant in really thinking about customer education and the customer education life cycle. But what we've tried to do here, which I think is been really powerful for me to think about my own customer education program that I oversee, is how does this interact with the business? So not the life cycle necessarily of an individual customer, but what are the phases in the business and where are the places that I can influence with customer education, but also that I can understand the different teams across our business that work on those, so that customer education doesn't become something siloed in a particular team or department, but it actually becomes part of the rhythm of the company and part of the growth of the company. So this is something we've spent a bit of time on internally at LearnUpon, but also working with our own customers who are innovators in this space to validate how they're thinking about their customer education lifecycle. So what we've developed here is, right, we have Activate. And for those of you who said sort of in your customer education strategy, I think this is probably where you are. So Activate, this is onboarding and enabling. So this is, are you using customer education to onboard your customers onto your product, potentially train new admins there? This is the get them started on your product. This is the place where customer education usually starts. This is where you can see both a lot of resources, people resources going into Activate. So looking to how do we reduce the number of people required or the time, the face-to-face time in activating our customers. But it's also such a critical point, right? It's your time to launch, it's your time to value. So this is where we see people normally gravitate to for their first piece of customer education. And then engage. So that's really where you're starting to get your customers to engage with new features. So maybe you have a monthly release that is new feature updates where you're educating them on new features or new workflows or best practices. This is also, and I'll share where we are in LearnUpon, this is also where you're starting to get them engaged with you and with each other. So we have a customer community where we're also having our customers share best practices, welcome new members, engage in, not for us, not troubleshooting, but really engage in thought leadership in the industry. And so the customer education being a piece of that, also internal learning and development. And then grow, this is where, and I think about grow in two ways. So I think about grow in terms of traditional revenue growth. So what are you doing in your customer education strategy to encourage more usage, encourage adoption of new features, encourage bringing on new audiences? So traditional revenue growth, but also with growth. Oh, yeah. Also with growth, I think of growth in terms of the brand. So we really focus on advocacy here when we're thinking about our own program. So growing in terms of, are we growing champions? Are we growing customers who are working with us on customer stories or award submissions or in conference participation? So I think of this as both, yes, we want to grow the revenue, but we also are growing the brand. And then interesting here with attract, and I put this last, even though it potentially is first in the life cycle, but I think it's the last thing that people come to, is how are you using your customer education as a driver to attract new business? So HubSpot is obviously the great example here, where how are you using your certification or your customer education content to bring new people into HubSpot that then become paid users of HubSpot? So how are you using your customer education as an attract mechanism? And I find this one is actually a bit of the scarier one, because you're really saying, how do we put a value on our education as people would come to our education content, not just to learn a product, but actually to get real professional value from it. But it's really the exciting piece of it, and what is the ideal that you're headed to. For my own sake, at LearnUpon, we really sit between the engage and the grow piece. So we've become very good at Activate. We've done a lot with our customer community in partnership with our customer university on the engage piece. We work a lot with our marketing team, with Laura, on the advocacy piece of it. How can we use our customer education as a way to create new advocates and also reward and expand our existing advocates? And attract, if I'm being completely honest, that's the piece that as we develop this, I think this is my goal for the next quarter, is to be working with our marketing and our sales team to think, what are some small things that we can start to do in the attract phase to say, hey, we have a 30-minute thought leadership course that we're offering to our prospects. So small things like that, where it doesn't have to be building a full sales cycle here for attract. But this is the framework that I've found really useful in understanding how I want to position customer education as a strategic driver in the company. So I'm speaking the same language that matters across all the teams in the company.
Yeah, absolutely, Frances. And like, I think this life cycle makes it look easy, but it's not. We're going to delve into questions and we're going to really get into the nitty gritty, but I love that you had a goal as well. I think for next quarter, I really, really love that. So I'm going to kick off in to the next slide, but a question I'm going to come to you, Lindsay, is, and we're going to really start delving deep into these, is What stage of the customer life cycle do you see giving the most immediate impact? And how do you decide where to focus? So thinking of our attendees here today where they're just seeing this for the first time. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm sure for all of us here, we would have a different answer because it truly depends, right? I think for those 48% of you that said you sort of have a customer academy, logically, we might start in that activate piece of it, solving for onboarding, because for a lot of SaaS companies, onboarding is going to be that logical place, right? Because it has the highest potential, it also has the highest risk. But that aside, what I would say is for all of us here, this is going to depend, this is going to vary. The answer to this is going to come internally because where you decide where that impact is going to be aligned with your business goals. You really need to be thinking about, okay, where are my customers getting stuck? Or what do they need to be able to do next? Where can you solve for the biggest pain point that your customers or your users are having? That's what we need to solve for first, and absolutely line up with those business goals and making sure that you have that cross-functional alignment. I saw Eric nodding a little bit as well, but I'd be curious what everybody else thinks here.
Yeah, I can jump in to get us started. I think definitely agree with everything you said. Where I'm thinking about this is often it's, like I said, dependent, but like where is the lever going to have the most impact? If you have trouble getting qualified leads and like education can help qualify leads, like that's going to be a major lever. Like you might have an already good enough activate scheme. So like even though you can do more with maybe activate, look at where your lever is going to have the most impact. And you don't have to choose. It's like if I had to choose, like, oh, which one of these is my favorite child? It's like, ooh, don't want to pick a favorite child out of these. I like them all. I love them all. I need them all. But if I'm going to put some energy into one at a time, it's like, where is my energy going to have the most impact?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, follow the data. Let your business goals guide whether it's your entry point if you don't have customer education yet, or if you do, trying to figure out where to go next. But you almost have some of that roadmap and guardrails in place with the data and metrics you already have.
And I think this is the exciting piece, but it's important to be aware of it and I think make peace with it of this is going to change quarter over quarter. Like you really need to be dialed into the business to not say, hey, in January 2025, the most important thing to the business was attracting additional leads. That might not be the case 6 months later. 6 months later, the most important thing to the business might be retention. And so but to me, this is the fun part of the agility of being able to zoom in and zoom out and to be able to understand in an individual team what is a particular need there that customer education can solve. It might be a big feature release that the adoption is really, really important. So zooming in on that, but then also being aware at all times of the zoom out piece of what's important to the business, because you have to be acutely aware of that, or you're going to miss opportunities to impact that. And then at worst become obsolete or sort of a cost center of you're not being seen as a strategic driver.
Yeah. I think as well, you've noted there, Lindsay, is that let data kind of drive your decisions there. But for, say, attendees on this call today, like what are the questions they would ask internally to help make these decisions? And Frances, Eric, Chris, feel free to jump in here as well. But how does those conversations start?
Yeah, I always like to think of it as kind of different groups of data or goals. So if you look at like the high level business strategy, right, you're usually looking at some acquisition number, you're usually looking at some activation number and some retention number. And of course, there's a lot of different versions of that. But when it comes to kind of activate and engage, what we find a lot when it comes to the questions to ask, if you're asking, why do you focus or care so much on activating customers? Usually it's because customers who don't activate or don't complete onboarding retain at a lower rate. But when you start actually asking the question, well, how much of onboarding is dependent on their retention. It helps them start, but so most likely you're kind of giving them a boost with great onboarding, but there's still more that happens between the time on they're onboarded and the time retention comes up. So when you start looking at those retention numbers, instead of just saying, well, who's retaining, start asking the question, what are users doing between the time of activation and that time when their contract's up and they renew or not? What do those activities look like? Because sometimes it's not just onboarding and then more content, but it might be asking yourself, how do we get someone to be a proficient user who can find value and think critically around different ways to use the software? Then all of a sudden you might say to yourself, well, it's almost like there's two parts, or we're going to have a certification or a course that's going to assist with onboarding, but more focused on that end goal of how do we get someone to be a successful user and what does that look like over time. So I would be really digging into trying to talk to customers, really understand what are those kind of aha moments. And some of them, yes, will be on onboarding, but digging in further and trying to understand, is it that sixth feature? Is the eighth email they send? Is it the first time somebody comes to HR, if you're an HR platform and specific action happens? And how do we create education and training to help people get to those milestones?
Yeah, that I could probably talk for like hours on data. I'll try and keep it super succinct. I think two things I'm always thinking about when I'm talking about education and data is one, like watch out for the data traps, like course registrations, course completions, number of people who have attended, like gone to your academy. Those are vanity metrics. Like they look cool, but they don't actually tell anything, and like C-suite does not care. Um, but if you can show like, hey, they completed this lesson and they did this action in platform, or because causation is like very tough to like, just like with marketing, like causation is very tough to prove for education. So like lead with like, we're gonna go for correlation, and like that way you kind of avoid the like you're already taking care of the question the C-suite's gonna ask you, being like, this looks like correlation, not causation. It's like, yeah, it is, but it's a very strong correlation between users who have trained on this course versus users who have not trained on this course. Like, what do they do in product? And like kind of like Chris was saying, um, make really good friends with your data team, learn your data products, because if you can look at who your all-star users are, or even who your churned users are, go backwards through their journey, you can see, oh, this is what I need to teach to get someone to stay on, or this is what they didn't learn, and that's why they're churning. There's a lot of hidden things in the data.
Oh, Frances, we can't hear you.
I was worried it was me for a second. I was like, I worked in IT long enough, I have this effect on things.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Loud and clear.
Okay, super. Yeah, so just to underscore, and please do take away Eric's point about causation and correlation, of get rid of causation. That's you're not expected to say our customer education is the sole driver of retention. You're not expected here. But if you're living in the world of causation, you're going to be in those vanity metrics that Eric mentioned of course completions or course ratings or number of logins, and you will, I promise you, have those awful meetings when you're sitting with executives and they will say, what does this mean? What does this translate into? And so if you can be brave and step into correlation and say customer education is a driver of retention, is a driver of customer satisfaction, is a driver of revenue growth. It's so exciting. But it is a brave step to take because it's less comfortable to be in that world.
Do you think that's to do as well with the maturity of their customer education programs? So for people on this call.
I think so. I think that as your customer education program matures, you begin to pull in more data sets across the company. So you're beginning to look at your product data, at your retention data, at your customer satisfaction data, at your engagement data. But I also think that even in the beginning of a customer education program, do not start with your goal of measuring completions and logins. They're helpful as a learning professional. They're helpful to understand if you have a course that has low completions, to be able to say, what's going on with this content that people are not completing it? Is it too long? Is it hard to get through? Is it difficult to understand? Is it not useful? It's helpful as a content creator, but it has zero value to the business. And so please, please, please don't take it out to the business. For all of us as customer education professionals, we can do better.
For those of us who here today are saying to ourselves, wait, that's what we're tracking, we're just starting off. A quick, easy way to take one qualitative step before you can get to your data sets is to just make sure you have a strong feedback loop, whether you call that a CSAT or an NPS at the end of a course.
Yep.
Because there are a lot of businesses that we work with where executives will say, we saw the numbers, we saw the reports, customer education clearly can influence or has a correlation. Prove to me in the next 3 months that there's demand for it. Right. And so it's like they don't, the only thing you need to do is like create the course, get people into it, and
Yep.
show or hear qualitatively this works. Right. So sometimes you're taking that iterative, almost like developing a product where it's like, is anybody even going to try to use the product? Is there going to be any interest? So if you're in that phase, like not all is lost, but make sure beyond those logins, you at least start getting some feedback where you can understand that yes, users are expressing through themselves that they're seeing value. So we can say, yes, we should invest more. At that time, by all means, make sure if you're getting a green light on an academy program, leadership or somebody who can get time from the data team is on your side, and you're building that into an SLA that you're going to get some of that, because that's one of the hardest things as a customer education team that's being developed kind of as an add-on or in addition to a current go-to-market kind of strategy or program that already exists, is how do you get some of those resources? So advocating for those resources, making friends, as Eric said, is it, sending them a gift card? I don't know. Maybe it's learning about their children. But whatever it is, like those are resources you're truly going to need. And you're going to want to do it as soon as possible, but not all is lost if today you're not doing it.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's a nice segue into our next poll. So, how would you describe the maturity of your customer education program? So, I think this is our last poll. So, I'm going to share this poll. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to fill it out. Please let us know. Are you ad hoc? Are you coping? Are you emerging? Or are you a mature program here today? It'd be so good to understand. Okay, we're getting some mixed answers. Okay, 15 seconds left. I feel like I'm on, those game shows where they're counting down and the timer's going and it's like you have to get your answer in real quick.
Yeah, while the poll's loading, one last kind of vanity metric that we run into from like hey, it's my job to make a customer education program is number of courses or the number of lessons you've created. When we look at our data, I've looked at a lot of companies' data. Your like introductory courses are gonna be the vast majority of what people take. Like your equivalent of like a 101 and 102 course, like new customers taking training. It's probably 60 to 80% of the total course load on your LMS. And if you commit to, oh, I'm going to launch a bunch of new courses each time, you're going to kind of run into the trap of you should really get that, like that course that everyone's taking really nailed, even though it may not be a new course every time. Like, don't promise new courses, promise like the right courses.
Amazing. Perfect. Thanks, Eric. And thank you to everyone who filled out our poll. I've shared the results with our panelists. So, Frances, I'm going to kick off to you because you're like the pro in this area for LearnUpon the next 2 stages. So, I'm really interested to hear how this works for us.
Yeah. So this was interesting, and I bring my experience from higher education, and it's sort of at a time when higher education was being pushed to educate more effectively, and that students had different expectations of what time spent in the classroom should be. At the time, I was working for a medical university, so very high stakes in training medical professionals, and we were pushing faculty to spend more time with their students, but that time being interactive. So that time not being lectures, but that time being problem solving, questions, coaching. And so for LearnUpon, that's really where we started is what if we were able to use customer education to provide the foundational information about how to use our product, and that our time with our customers' time with our onboarding team was consultative, was problem solving, was talking about strategy? Because when we looked back at it, and it is sort of horrifying at the time, but I just give ourselves grace for this. But when I look back of what we were asking our onboarding team to do 5 years ago, I mean, mind-numbingly repetitive. And I don't think that we realized that. I can look back on it and see that now, but I don't think we saw it at the time. Of they were day after day repeating the same training. Here is how you create a user in LearnUpon. Here's where you find your general settings. Here's how you create a course. This is how you set up automation. This is how you run a report. And so just as a practice for our onboarding team, that was really not the best use of their time. And we hired really smart, creative people who wanted to talk to our customers about best practices, about setting up workflows that were saving time, about understanding their strategy. So initially, that was, what if we were able to take, and really that training covered 2 weeks. So what if we were able to take those 2 weeks of very static training and turn that into on-demand asynchronous training that our customers would take before they then engaged with us around what business results are you trying to achieve? What integrations do we need to work with your IT team to set up? So that was our initial thinking around this of how do we increase the quality of time that we are spending with our customers? Because also then we looked at the retention side of things. We could see that customers who didn't have an effective strategy or didn't have an effective workflow set up, that those were the customers that we were not retaining after their first year. But we weren't losing customers because they weren't effectively trained on how to add users into LearnUpon or how to create courses in LearnUpon. So we needed our onboarding team to be spending time with our customers that was actually impacting their revenue over time. So we have then a core curriculum, and again, it's that introductory curriculum. We've spent a lot of time on it. We have our onboarding team. That's part of their role is they oversee that curriculum and they update it and improve it based on feedback that we get constantly. And so that's our core curriculum. That it's a series of 6 courses. They're in smaller chunks. It takes about 2 hours for customers to complete. Just for context, our implementation can take from 1 month to 3 months. So for us, the 2 hours was the right amount of time to invest in that original introductory program. So that's now the foundation of our implementation team in the way that they run our customers through onboarding. And we've been able to show both it has improved our time to value. So we've been able to take, which we thought maybe we would take 2 weeks off of implementation. It's about a month. Like we can move that much faster through implementation when customers have that foundational experience or that foundational knowledge about our product. We can also show a correlation between customers who actively engage with the onboarding content and their overall retention, as well as their NPS. So customers who have completed that program have higher satisfaction and are more likely to renew. And we have a higher satisfaction from our implementation team. So our onboarding team, they have higher job satisfaction because they are doing things that are more meaningful. They have more personal engagements with our customers, and they are able to do work that is creative and interesting. So that's definitely been a knock-on impact for us. So the Activate piece, this is where and I feel really confident about our Activate piece of our program, that our customers hit our onboarding program in our university, and it activates them. So it gets them from, I haven't done anything in LearnUpon, to I have now learned and am able to do the core functionality in the platform. And for us, that's been transformational in the way that we interact with our customers, both new customers, but also ongoing.
Amazing. That's, yeah. Eric, Lindsay, Chris, anything to add?
I think I would just highlight, Francis, what you mentioned around realizing that some of the work or the strategy has to take place, or takes place outside of the product,
Yes.
right? And I think that's such an important piece of when we think about activation, or we think about setting users up for success.
Yep.
Even if somebody is an expert in their field and they come into a new system, right? Your system or your platform or your product exists because somebody at some point had a unique idea or approach on how to build the product to enable a user or a group of people to do their job. So even if you're an expert, you have to learn why and how the product was built a specific way. But then there's the strategy piece. And sometimes people are coming in and they don't understand the strategy. I love email as an example. There's so many email tools out there, and you could pick one or the other. But if you don't know how to send a good email, and you have a bad title, you don't have links, calls to action to drive people to what you want. There's so many, you're using imported lists that have honeypots in them, and you get like, there's so many things just in that one example that can have a super powerful tool can still result in suboptimal results. And so when you're thinking about that activation, it's finding that balance. It's understanding what can take place in the product, but also what do we have to empower, enable our users, educate our users on so that they can see the results with the product.
Yeah, and I think with that too, there's the, like, we always fall into this like expert blindness piece where it's like, oh, I know this product super well, and like this is everything that's super important. And it's like, if you had like 30 seconds to teach them something, like, hey, you're gonna get cut off in the Zoom call in 30 seconds, you have to give them what they can get. Okay, that's great. That's the very, very core of it all. And then it's like, what do I add on to that? And it's like, at a certain point, you're gonna hit like, oh, this is the absolute need to have. And it's usually with that 80-20 rule. It's like 20% of what we think people need to know is like what they actually need to know. And then also just giving them really easy access to go further. Like, hey, when you hit the wall with this tool, which you're going to, here's the next resource, but we're not going to give it to you until you want to actually go for it. Because a lot of folks in education, like in our roles, like we're the kind of folks who read the manual. Most folks do not want to read a manual to do a thing. They just want it to work. But if you give them a chance to be like, if you read the manual, I've written the manual as tight as possible and guided you like exactly what you need to know, they're going to respect that.
Love it. Love all the different perspectives. I'm going to click into and move on to engage, Francis, because I know we've roughly about 5 to 8 minutes left before we want to give time for questions. If you haven't asked questions, please get your questions in the chat. Let us know. We're here to guide you and give you advice. So yeah, Francis.
Yeah. And the engage piece, and again, you always come to these maybe in a little bit of a backwards way, or from a different place from where you started. So for us at LearnUpon, so engage really came from a place of, what would it look like if our customers were engaged with each other, and if we were able to promote really high quality thought leadership, and we were able to take customers who maybe were new to learning and development, whether that be employee or whether that be customer education, and connect them with some of our customers who are really powerful thought leaders here. And so that was my initial vision for what Engage would look like. Our customer community is called Engage. And so we were looking for, what would it look like if our customers engaged with each other and with us around thought leadership? But as we've started to tie some of the threads around customer education, and then as always, needs in the industry change, we see that customers have more access to information really, really quickly. And so what they needed was to be able to have quality engagements with our customer education content. And so for us, that's our university. So that's where we have all of our on-demand courses. That's our customer community. And then that's also our knowledge base. And so that's the question that I started asking myself last year, and then did some presentations to our executive team of what would it look like if we increase the level of engagement in our self-help customer education materials. And there were some asks in that of we needed to create better integrations. We needed to have better resources for ongoing content creation, but we also needed to then be more tightly aligned with our marketing team, with our product team, with our sales team. But we could, by helping our customers engage effectively with our customer education resources, we really were driving, I mean, a sort of spider web across the business in terms of the impact to our support team, the impact to our customer success team, the impact to our implementation team, the impact to our product team. And this has definitely grown legs over the last couple of months with us, of really getting customer education being something that all of our teams are talking about and all of our teams are excited about. Our product team, it's been so fun to see them see what this could mean for them, of both being able to educate customers and educate people internally about new features or functionality. And so this engage piece, if you are keyed into your company's strategy and what they're thinking about and what matters, this one can be really, really exciting. And you can start evangelizing what would it look like if customers were, and I think we think of it as like, yes, they're solving their problems themselves, but like, what would that actually mean for the business? To the point before of, what would it mean if somebody completes a course? Like, what would it mean if customers are able to solve these issues through our education materials? And it's been really exciting for me to think about that and to see all the teams who their eyes light up when you can see what it might mean for them.
Love it. And I think this leads into kind of like the next phase where, like Frances said, we're kind of going a little bit backwards in the life cycle here, but it touches into grow then those users that are engaging, how to turn them into super users, into advocates who grow with your product. So I think that's like an important touch point we should kind of get more on as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think about this example all of the time too, of a customer asked a question about a feature in our product, and our support team gave them the answer, and then also made sure that they knew where the information in the knowledge base was. But actually, the answer that I wanted them to have was in our customer education suite, was in our customer community, where it was customers sharing how they use this feature. Because the question that the customer was asking our support team wasn't, how should I use this feature, but why should I use this feature? And that answer was really required them to be engaged with each other. And there was that thought leadership. There was that really, really valuable content. And so it is, and this is still a work in progress for us, but understanding how to take the customer education content that you have and thinking broadly about that. That's your community, that's your knowledge base, that's everything. How do you build that into thought leadership so that you're not just answering questions for your customer, but you're actually putting the right solution, the right strategy, the right direction in front of them? And so that's a challenge for us too. We want to give them answers that aren't just a regurgitation of the knowledge base. We want to give them the education, pushing them forward in a better direction and getting them to think differently about how they're doing things.
Yeah, for sure. Eric, Chris, Lindsay, anything to add, or shall we move on to the attract stage? Try squeeze it in before Q&A.
Yeah, I think just very briefly, a thing to remember, and like as you're trying to like really grow and engage those users, is a lot of these platforms, you're dealing with ICs who are doing work that is invisible. If you can celebrate them, if you can make them feel seen, like, hey, you completed this course, like you're a certified admin, let's shout you out. Like, yeah, let's have you on a webinar, or have you featured in something. Like, make them feel recognized. It's like it's not just another user of the software, but like you're someone who's valued at because like you're doing really interesting stuff, and like that can go a long way. Like a sticker in the mail that's a surprise, like that's fun. It costs almost nothing, but like little moments of joy that are linked to education just makes it all the more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're coming up a little bit on time, but I do want to touch on attract stage. And I know we've covered so much today, and I hope your heads aren't twisting. But I think a really important question here to ask today is, how are we seeing education play a role before customers even buy? So, Chris and Lindsay, I'm going to put you on the spotlight here because I know this is kind of your wheelhouse.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say that the attract stage is one that a lot of businesses are excited for or are want to explore, but more often than not, it's not the right time in the business's strategy and growth to move into the attract phase. So just as Frances said, like this, she's done all of this work and is now ready to move into it. And the reason is there's a couple of things that you want to think about. And we've seen this with businesses we've worked with or businesses we've talked to. If you are a smaller startup and you don't have your marketing engine rip roaring, you can create an amazing course. But if you don't have the resources to attract folks to that course, right, then you're going to have to look at paid media, or you're going to have to put a lot of your marketing effort towards that course. Usually marketing teams, especially at smaller SaaS businesses as they're growing, are strapped for cash, right? So is your leadership team going to say, yes, let's take this very potentially very successful long-term strategy to educate the market and the customers? Or are we going to put our money into getting demo leads or free trial signups this month? More often than not, the answer is going to have to be free demos and trials. And so when like we think about when is the right time, it has to be the right time for the business. But the key piece, which I think Lindsay, you always talk about, is if we develop this great educational content for onboarding, for kind of that activation and grow and engage phases, a lot of that's going to be strategic. And so lots of times you can take some of the educational content that exists for those other phases of the life cycle and repurpose that as an attract course. And that's what happened at HubSpot. When we started, our educational courses, our certifications were for customers. Then we saw that businesses were adding friends, family, other people in network to take those courses. So we opened it up and let anybody take it. Didn't put much marketing behind it. Started to grow, people started to share it. Then we started to put marketing behind it years later. So we always use something that we call like the industry cert readiness score. And there's a lot of different factors. And it's like when those factors line up, it's probably the right time. It can be extremely powerful to develop a new market. Right? You're building trust in a way that a sales rep would take a lot more time one-on-one. So I'd say it's one of the most exciting stages, at least from my perspective, to build in. But it's one that there's a lot of commitment, and from a marketing team who needs to see leads next month, lots of times it's a little bit longer term of a play. And so you have to weigh the balances between the costs of generating leads that have a high potential to convert in the next 3 to 6 months or 1 to 3 months versus these leads that you're educating and over time are hopefully going to close.
Yeah, I'll echo what Chris is saying, and he kind of mentioned that the modular approach to education. No matter, honestly, whatever life cycle you are in and focusing on for education, if you're building your education with a structure in a modular way, you have the opportunity to potentially repurpose it, especially for those strategic components. But what Chris is also mentioning in this attract stage, to really excel in this space, you have to have a unique point of view. Your business, you're in the industry. You need to be teaching things differently and better than your competitors. So that can also take time to craft. But if your business does have that unique point of view, HubSpot really had that. We were fortunate enough that education was ingrained in the culture of HubSpot. So we could easily teach these topics that other people weren't. But you may find that within your competitive landscape, that's very difficult. So it is important to spend the time to craft that unique point of view if you're looking to approach this attract stage.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to press on and give some time for Q&A, but I think what's really important here is we've spoken a lot today, and I'm very aware we come on webinars and we're reading information all the time, but what's one action you are going to take after this session? So I'd love if you could pop it in the chat, let us know what you've learned today or what you're kind of feeling excited to kind of test out with your leadership team. And then also Flavia has been posting in some really, really cool links there about our customer life cycle, our customer stories that have been successful doing this. And also we have a customer education white paper report, all about data points you can share with your teams. Okay, and now I'm going to hand over to the Q&A. So I think Riaz had a question in there about how do you handle learning personalization for users who wear multiple hats in their organization? Who wants to take this one? Frances, we'll give it to you.
Yeah, I will go back to the keep it real. I don't think we do this well currently, and that it is, but it's a fair question, and Riaz, because I also know that you wear multiple hats. And I think about myself as an end user, right? I am an administrator of, I'll take our customer experience platform, for example, and so that I require sort of the end user training as an administrator of that platform. But I also wear the hat of the strategy for our customer success team, and leading that team. And so there's education that I need both on how do I create this dashboard, and then there's also how do I surface up metrics that are going to matter to my executive team. So that's not a great answer there, other than it is really difficult. And I think expanding your content strategy outside of just training people on your product. And so I would say Laura and I work really closely together. And so thinking about leaning on your marketing team here too, who might have a view towards more of the thought leadership piece in the industry, and seeing if there are collaborations there on content that would be outside of your product training content.
Great. Thanks, Frances. I hope that answered your question, Riaz. I have a question in here from Julie, and it's what are the key metrics you track to measure success across the attract phase, or if you have any? So I think maybe this is coming from if it's not going to generate leads straight away, like what are other metrics you would still focus on to report up to leadership? Lindsay, we'll pick you this time.
Yes, happy to jump in. I know we talked a little bit about not paying super close attention to those course completions, but starting there, of course, just seeing like the success of the education of the course, even looking at track signups or course signups as well, starting to think of those as like generating leads. And then I'd start to pay close attention to, for those that are going through your educations, what that converts to for demo requests from your learning content. Because of course, attribution can be really tricky, but for someone that spends 45 minutes, right, with you learning from you, they are likely to convert. So starting to pay very close attention to what they do if they are a prospect after they go through your education.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay. Have we any more questions in the chat? Megan, I know you were multitasking. It's a common trait on webinars. I do it all the time. It will be a to watch on recording. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the Q&A, I didn't realize my typing of an answer would mark it as like answered. But I'd love to get everyone else's take. Chris asked, what kind of metrics would be good to track for onboarding enablement, like the ones that C-suite really care about? Like for me, it's like, what is C-suite tracking from product side? Like think about education just strictly as a product. Your product you are making is to make product adoption work better, and like retention work better. So it's like, okay, yeah, does like time to value, like are people who are educated, are they faster in time to value? If you teach them something, like are they doing it more, like those key actions? Like for Heap, it was like, hey, we want people to run queries, educated users versus non-educated users. There's a whole discussion on that. Like that's a really good correlation. Like, do they come back month after month? Like, can you prevent melts? If there's things like support tickets that are common, like people who take your courses, do they submit that type of ticket? You can sort of like, oh, we're saving our support team hours and hours of time. A lot of really good metrics there.
And one that's been fun for us, and I'm really proud of it, but also it's just understanding who needs this number. So we share this with our sales team and our marketing team, but what is our CSAT in implementation that also reviews our customer education material? And that's essentially a product that you're selling. And so it's your NPS on your product of customer education. And so that's incredibly valuable to your sales team to take that out into the market and say, hey, our customer education product is reviewed very highly across our customers. And so I really take that point, Eric, too, of thinking about are your customers finding value in this, and is there demand for that, and really sharing that across all of the teams, especially your sales team, of go sell this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Frances. That brings us up on time. I can't believe that hour just flew by, but I hope everyone really enjoyed the session. And a big thank you to our panelists, Chris, Lindsay, Eric, and Frances. The recording will be available, but if you have any questions, feel free, there's the end of day brains, to reach out on LinkedIn, contact LearnUpon, and connect with all of us. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Cheers, y'all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
all.
everyone.